Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and programme stream at windowsontheworld.net.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Windows on the World Live. You're listening on windowsontheworld.net, ocelli.com, TuneIn Radio, and maybe a couple of other radio stations. We'll have a full list of where we're going out to next week because it's getting quite exciting. A lot of people taking up the show. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for being here, especially those in the chat. Hopefully the sound quality is okay. We do have someone saying that we sound a bit Dalek-y, but we've got others saying that we sound fine, so hopefully that's good. Anyway, how you doing, Mark? What you got in store for us tonight?
Oh, I'm fine, Tony. And a few weeks ago, I started doing some real in-depth research and putting it together with the Agenda 21 stuff, which we talk about a lot. That's obviously become Agenda 2030, and also they call it Habitat now. These are a series of conferences that go on every year. I think the last one was in South America. And basically what they're doing is they're bringing in the Global Action Plan, which is what we see happening before us if we live in a place like London or any other town, city or village in the UK. Yes, it's happening in all the villages too. And this so-called regeneration, gentrification, is just a front for this agenda, which is the Global Action Plan of hive housing, sustainable development, walkable cities, smart cities. Of course, Glasgow is going to be the first smart city. We've got smart motorways. And interestingly, the people who are in charge of the motorways, this was on the back of what happened with Carillion this week, which was this huge company that's now gone out of business, basically into liquidation, which was the chosen partner for a lot of the regeneration, also in charge of building hospitals and schools and looking after the military personnel housing in this country. So that's all gone into liquidation, which is quite interesting in a way, isn't it? Because you'd think that they would at least have sorted that out so that couldn't happen. But yeah, this is all part of the Global Action Plan, the bigger picture that we see unfolding, and that's massive. So what I wanted to try and do was bring it into some kind of perspective, because there was something that was said by a Russian general in the early 90s, which put the whole thing into perspective. And I've only just got hold of this information. It was General Petrov, and he was stating that basically what happened after this Rio Earth Summit in 1992 was that nothing happened. Now, the Rio Earth Summit, most of the listeners will probably know, but for those who don't, it was the big introduction to get this Agenda 21 and this United Nations program of fake environmentalism through, well, it is mentalism, environmentalism, fake environmentalism, which is about huge taxation for carbon and cutting down CO2, basically making us serfs, and in a very old kind of fashioned feudal way, but with a very corporate front. And General Petrov said that nothing happened after this conference, and none of the countries were taking it seriously. So the World Bank and banks all over the world with the corporates, the huge corporates, which are now running the whole thing. And obviously we've got in London, we've got Bechtel and Lend-Lease. We're running the infrastructure in most of these different areas. Or London's been totally regenerated in the past couple of years to a degree that is impossible if it had been actually gone through any planning stages. So he was saying that what happened was that all of these multinationals and banks got together with the IMF and the World Bank, and they said, we will look after the whole of the infrastructure. If you let us have control of it, we will control it all for you. Now, this is a very, very significant point, because I didn't or couldn't see how Agenda 21 could be properly implemented so quickly without this happening. And he put a massive piece of the jigsaw together for me. And that really ties in what we're going to talk about tonight in a broad sense. But there's loads to this, and it's multi-layered. People who don't know about this will probably find it hard to understand. But basically, everything that's happening, this so-called regeneration, gentrification, and all the things that you're seeing locally, like roads closing, huge pavements, 20 mile per hour zones everywhere, and the restricting of access to all these different roads and infrastructure, people with cars, huge taxation on car owners, getting rid of diesel cars, even though the government told us to buy them, etc. It's all part of this Basically, the quote goes, "We will solve all problems of rich and poor countries if you submit to us in undivided possession of all the infrastructure that ensures the livelihood of people." Very, very cleverly put, that ensures the livelihood of people. In other words, it's a custodial thing, this. It's about controlling the population. So that led me on to look into a lot of other areas, especially the psychological side of this. And it ties in so much to what's going on because we've got this corporate structure running things through the banks, and it's now taking hold of everything. And we've talked about things like Crime Stoppers and this sort of idea that Crime Stoppers started of the snitch culture, which is actually what it is, because, as we said last week, a lot of the people on Crime Stoppers aren't actually wanted for anything, really. But what it's about is getting people to police themselves, getting the public to snitch on each other and police each other and keep each other in line, which is very much along the ideas of 1984 and Brave New World. Yep. And it goes into the whole idea of political correctness. But there's a great story that I've been sent today. It's on the Mail Online. Get this. Terror bobbies on the cheap. Volunteers will be used to take on jihadis in just one of the controversial new plans to deploy the public on the crime-fighting beat. Volunteers will be recruited as counter-terror officers in controversial schemes. They will help with major incident investigations with Prevent. Now, this Prevent strategy is all about the local council being involved with the police to monitor who they believe is a danger to the community or who is vulnerable to radicalization or is radical in their views. Now, radical in their views can mean anything. It can mean just somebody like us who they deem to have radical views. So I've heard this from several people, this Prevent strategy. It's not about Muslim extremism. It's about police state control through the council and the police of us, citizens. And we're starting to see this with all this hate crime stuff being put forward. The police now on all their websites are going, do you want to report a hate crime? Not do you want to report a burglary, because we're not going to actually attend your property to help you if there's been a burglary because we haven't got enough staff. But what we'll do is if you've had your feelings hurt, we will go and prosecute someone for their posts on Facebook. And I've actually had this threat myself. Some of these change agents have said, we're going to report you for hate speak. Well, that's really interesting because I'd like to know what possible hate speak that's on Facebook. But the way that all this is defined is that basically it's about the way someone feels about something. It's not actually what you've said and whether it's legally wrong. It's about whether they feel that they've been offended. And this is all part of it. So this huge kind of involvement of people in this sort of fake idea of counter-terrorism. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And what they're doing is they're getting kids, get this, children will also join mini police teams to spot speeding motorists and yobs. Oh, wait a minute. I thought it was about countering terrorism. Wait a minute. So you've got now kids who are going to be standing at the side of a road, with a speed camera gun. How are they going to know if a motorist is going over 30 miles an hour? And how are they going to testify that in court?
It sounds like we're going back to the 1600s, Mark. I was telling you earlier that I watched a documentary about the Pendle witch trials and that, and this sounds exactly the same as that. They were using kids to point out witches and then burning them. You know, is this the same thing or what?
Well, it absolutely is, because they're going to recruit these horrible, obnoxious people. Can you imagine the sort of kid who'd want to go and catch speeding motorists? I mean, to me, I would never have got involved in anything like that as a kid. You know, it's just absurd. And also, it's the Thames Valley Police that are training them. And they've all got little police uniforms. And guess what, Tony? They get to carry an ID with them. And it's got mini police on it. So these little sods are going to be the people who are going to be the civil enforcement officers of the future. They're going to be issuing your parking tickets and kicking your door down if you owe an extra 50 quid on your council tax. That's what's going to happen. And that's what they're training them into. And that's what all of this stuff like Crime Stoppers and all the rest of it's about. Because I've been given some more information. Crime Stoppers started in New Zealand quite a few years ago, and they now have an integrity line. So if you think that somebody is not being completely honest with you at work, you can report them as well. So we've got this snoop culture. We're already getting it. We're getting these campaigning groups like Hope Not Hate and the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, basically targeting people who disagree with their propaganda. And that's all this is about. It's a propaganda war. And the Soviets were the geniuses at this. They know it inside out. So when they point out to us that we're under communist rule, then I think we should take notice of them, because these defectors from the Soviet Union did know what they were talking about. People like Yuri Bezmenov, this General Petrov. I mean, the stuff he comes out with is absolutely mind-blowing. And it's the pattern for what's going on here. It's the model for what's going on. So we can talk about this Agenda 21 and all this sort of control, but it's happening in such a huge way that you've now got these kids dressed up in little berets with stupid luminous jackets on and cameras. One of them's got a camera around his neck. So what's he going to do? Take a picture of someone who's going over 20 miles an hour getting out of their car when they're going shopping or something. It's pathetic. And this is something that everybody should be up in arms against, you know. And what are they doing? Recruiting kids who should be in school learning something anyway.
Maybe they were inspired by the Hitler Youth Programme or something. I don't know.
Well, it's beyond that even, because if you look at what this is just about snooping for the sake of it. There's no actual value system in place. It's just that they've got this one at the front as well, and he really does look like the sort of person who's going to get great joy out of issuing you a ticket or kicking your door in 20 years' time, you know. It's absolutely unbelievable. And it says, the revelations come after this newspaper revealed last month how a dad's army of unpaid border guards will be used to monitor marinas, harbours and airfields. What do you mean, a dad's army of unpaid border guards? What are they going to do? Catch some crazed person who's trying to get into the country or probably kill them? I mean, this is pathetic, you know. I mean, out in Kent, there was some suspected of being around the area where I live in. And I think it was all local radio, and people were saying, there's a few refugees about in one of the fields. I mean, so what you're going to do, get old age pensioners to go and catch them? This is a joke, isn't it? I mean, absolutely ridiculous. But it says here, chief constables have set up a national citizens in policing strategy to boost these numbers and increase the resources available to achieve social goals and help reduce demands on public services. Well, they are reducing demands on public services because the police don't come out anymore. So that is reducing demand, definitely, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, Tony.
The burglaries that you were talking about earlier, you say they don't come out, but I think recently we had a conversation with someone who was saying that in their area they come out or even numbers and not odd numbers or something like that, or this side of the road but not that side of the road. Some craziness like that. I haven't checked into that. I'll probably
yes, that's a very good point. I mean, there must be some reason they come out of the station. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like, you know, number 33. Yes, that sounds quite good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
number 11, number 22.
Martin made a good joke in the chat there. I suppose it was not really a joke, but it is funny. Going back to people getting offended and them deciding what's offensive, what's a crime and what's not. So Martin says, what about the millions of people offended by Theresa May? Good point. Or any other politician, for that matter. Yes,
but this is the point we tried to make in those shows, wasn't it, Tony? That what redress do we have when we're offended? We don't have any redress, do we?
Apparently
That's
not.
The point. No, we don't have any redress.
You know, it's getting burgled's offensive, isn't it? You know? That's really offensive, isn't it? Someone's come into your home and invaded your private space, taken away your private property. That's really offensive, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And the thing is that we get offended all the time because we're actually listening to what's going on. But this cult of hurt feelings is all about that. It's about the ability of busybodies, nosy neighbours, and people of a very petty mindset to take issue with somebody they don't like. And this is what has happened to me over the years. If they don't like what you're saying, they start turning it into something against you, like, it's hate speak. And they start all these whispering campaigns. And this has been going on and the background of stuff that I've been looking at for years, but now it's coming to the open because it's actually the policy to do it. And they're encouraging these school kids to do this sort of thing and police people. Basically, wait a minute, when I was a kid, you had to have a bit of respect for adults. I mean, what is this about? You know, we're going to get 12-year-olds saying, oh, you shouldn't have been doing that speed there. You know, absolutely sickening, really. A lot of people take issue with this and go, oh, so you're saying that that speeding is a good thing. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you can only enforce this with legal capacity. So what these people are doing is it's like rumour mongering. And the whole problem with this change agent culture is that they accuse you of things that you haven't done, you know.
Yep. And that speeding thing, we could have a whole show about that. Maybe we will at one point. I was having a chat with Mithrin about it yesterday, actually, because there's more to that than meets the eye as well. It's a pretty big one. But, yeah, it's pretty shocking. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it says here that, as part of this plan, they have been given £545,000 from a Home Office Innovation Fund. Why is this innovation? To deliver 19 pilot projects across England and Wales. And this includes the first ever scheme to place special constables in the counter-terrorism fields of policing, testing specifically roles in prevent, which is not about looking for radicalisation. It's looking for radicals, people who might have a brain cell left, those who might stand up against authority when it's absolutely bent. Oh, would that mean people like me who called out the Kent police? It might do. Maybe that's domestic terrorism. Maybe calling out corruption in the police is a terrorist offence. I think that's where we're going with this. Yeah. It says, documents seen by this newspaper show it will examine a previously unexplored area of specialism, I should say speciality, I think, for special constables and potentially longer term for volunteers with powers. Oh, here we go. So those useful idiots, those kids who are being trained, and all these snooping people who haven't got a job or anything to do because they're volunteers, they're going to be given power. What could possibly go wrong here, Tony? Can you think of anything?
No, give me a bit of time, though. Next week I might have something.
Yeah, I think it might have sunk in by then, Tony, because the implications of this are somewhat serious. It says it admits it will test cultural acceptance in one of the most sensitive areas of policing. What does that mean?
I wouldn't like to think it's quite broad, isn't it? You could interpret that in many different ways, couldn't you? I mean, cultural acceptance. Would I want to accept the cultural behaviour of those that interfere with children? No, I wouldn't. But you know, you could include that, couldn't you, in that statement?
Yes, but I have a feeling that they're going to interpret it in the way that they want to interpret it. You see?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You could interpret it in many different ways, couldn't you? Just
their interpretation will be rather different from ours. That's the point. Yeah. The Met will recruit 20 counter-terror specialists from the existing ranks of specials, but will expand the team if it is deemed a success. Recruitment, vetting and training starts next month, and the special will start work on major incident investigation and on prevent. You see, this is all about this prevent strategy. Now, they'll start work on major incident investigation. What? So the volunteers are involved in major incident investigation. Now, what major incidents could they possibly be talking about here that volunteers could get involved in? You know,
oh dear, sounds a bit scary, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds ridiculous because if you haven't got training, it's a bit like what we were talking about last week. You know, with Capita turning up on your doorstep and basically putting you under caution and giving you an interview under caution. Can they do that? Well, they can if you let them, I suppose. But what sort of idiot would let someone from Capita caution them in the first place? Well, the sort of idiot who would let them in their house, and the sort of idiot who would say that, yes, I was watching television, and the sort of idiot who would say, well, yes, I agree that it's a criminal offence, and I'll sign a confession. That's the sort of idiot we're talking about.
So a useful idiot, then?
Well, useless to the human race, but useful to certain sectors of the corporatocracy.
Yeah,
you know,
we've got a little thing for that. Yeah. Windows says,
Go on then.
watch out, there's a useful idiot about. Righto, there you go. You missed it, but everyone else heard it. Windows says there's a useful idiot about.
Well, that's great, Tony, because I'm being denied my right of audio there because I can't audio. I've got no rights of audio. I couldn't hear it. But, here we go, yeah. Callum MacLeod. Wasn't MacLeod? That was a fella on a horse, wasn't it? In the 70s in America.
Yeah, nice hat.
Yeah. Callum MacLeod, new chairman of the Police Federation that represents rank and file officers, said this is yet another step towards policing on the cheap and a further indication that money is being put before safety and a properly resourced police service. My God, one of them has a brain cell. What are we going to do? Well, he won't be invited to the next lodge meeting with an attitude like that. Special constables provide a valuable service, but they should never replace experienced officers in these harebrained schemes. Well, there is one of them that's come out and said something. That's pretty good, that.
Yeah,
it's very good. But at this picture, it's sickening, Tony. They've got these high-vis vests on. They've been given a little cap and a jacket with mini police on the back. And guess what? The first 3 degrees of the checkerboard, all on their back.
Oh, wow. I want one of them.
Yeah. Oh, imagine if you could have been a Freemason before the 11 plus.
If I get one of them, does the swagger come with it? Or do you have to go to a training school to get that special bowl and swagger that they wear?
No, I think it's more to do with the face, because these kids have the sort of faces that have been specifically bred for administration. It says for those aged 9 to 11, who started in Durham Constabulary, and is now being taken up across the country. It gives uniforms to pupils in economically deprived areas and invites them to special events. The idea, according to official documents, is that vulnerable children will be given a positive experience of policing and get involved in the local community. Now, this is so cynical. So what they're doing is they're indoctrinating them with a petty mindset, and then they're going to take them to these events to co-opt them even more into the superstate and away from any rationality that their parents might have put into their heads. Because this is all about the state taking hold of their minds. Absolutely. That's all it is.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, units of the mini police often go out on community speed watch duty, monitoring passing motorists on busy roads. Some are equipped with speed guns, while others hold up digital boards alerting drivers that they are going too fast. Can you imagine how irritating that is? To have a 9-year-old kid with a board saying you're going 24 miles an hour instead of 20. The Home Office is contributing £8,000, well, not very much, to an academic assessment of mini police, described as the largest scale primary school youth association delivery model ever led by UK policing. It's unreal, this. It's absolutely unreal.
Yeah,
because
I can't take it in. I'm sitting there shaking my head.
I know, but the thing is, yeah, it was about 5 years ago. You had these sort of elderly people with speed guns and high visibility jackets, you know. And so they've got old age pensioners doing it. And now they're getting 9-year-old kids to do it. It's absolutely unbelievable, really.
It even sounds like a form of child abuse to me, really, to be bringing that sort of authority, if you like, or perceived authority into the life and the mind of a child. Is some form of abuse, isn't it? It's got to be.
Well, it is, but it's total state control, isn't it? Literally police state control of the mind. The whole point with this bureaucracy that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger is to keep your own mind.
Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm Mark Windows. Now, over the years, we've put out a lot of information. The Windows on the World show has run for several years now. We've exposed corruption, found solutions, and put out some very useful information on many subjects since we started doing this. This includes, of course, the bigger picture, along with well-researched history, science, and, of course, health matters, which we also cover. Now, our initial website was landofthefree.co.uk, and this was set up to fight the corporate courts, rogue bailiffs, and the unlawful actions of public officials. I and many others have successfully fought criminal bailiff companies and won in court against dishonest counsels. This information is all still available. The journalistic integrity of Windows on the World is very important, and we try to put out information that's forensically accurate and simplistic as possible. So we try and put everything out in a very easy way for people to understand, because over the years there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation, especially with where people stand within the law, and it's got a lot of people into trouble. So we've always stayed on the right side of the law, but being able to empower people to go into court and do the right thing, that's very important to us. Now, I put this information out to the public because I feel it needs to be there. And even within so-called alternative media, there is much information which is misleading and incorrect. In fact, all the things the now ridiculous mainstream media accuses the alternative media of, there are people putting out stuff that's very, very unhelpful, and we try not to do that. So we accept no funding from anybody and are completely independent. And it's now increasingly necessary that we get some help to fund what we're doing. We're looking for sponsors from self-employed small business sector, which, as we know, is being destroyed, and we cover this a lot on the show with the plans for regeneration, the soaring business rates, and the destruction of what we used to know as our environment, because we're finding that people now are being pushed out and socially engineered from the places that they need to be. We'd also like to appeal to individuals who might be able to donate. Now, the donate button on the site, you can just scroll down to the bottom of the page, and it's also on every article and every video on the site, on windowsontheworld.net. Now, I've never asked for any donations before, but things are getting a bit tighter for us, and we want to carry on and expand what we're doing. That's the most important thing, to expand what we're doing and be able to bring you much more information, which is very difficult at the moment because there's just a few of us. So, the bottom line is, if you can spare a few quid and enjoy what we're doing, press the donate button, we'll be very grateful. And if there's anybody out there, small businesses, who benefit from the sort of information that we put out, and we know there's quite a few because we've been contacted by them, if you'd like to make a small contribution or help out in any way, we'd be most grateful. That's the end of that, and we'll see you soon on Windows on the World.